At 9:15 today, we're talking about building an emergency savings fund so when that big repair bill hits or an appliance breaks on you, you can pay for it without a sweat. We'll also talk about what to do if your emergency fund isn't quite where you want it yet and you're left with a big estimate. Joining us today, George Kamel, once again, financial expert with Ramsey Solutions. Good morning, George.
Good morning, Dave. Thanks for having me.
I want to start off with this graphic that we've put together based on your information about how to build our emergency savings fund, because a lot of folks, maybe they're just at the start of that process.
Yes, especially when you're trying to get control of your money, it feels like life is just punching you in the face with random emergencies. So we've got to have a buffer between us and life. And so if you're in debt, I want you to have a $1,000 starter emergency fund. Notice I said starter. This is not enough to catch everything, but it's enough to get those ankle biters as you tackle your debt. And as you do that, you're tackling your debt smallest to largest, regardless of the interest rate. And most people following our plan can do this in 18 to 24 months.
Yeah, the
and if you're out of debt,
method.
you can lean towards that 3 to 6 months of expenses.
I'm sorry, George, keep going. I'm sorry I interrupted.
Oh, absolutely. So if you're out of debt, I want you to save up 3 to 6 months of expenses. That's your fully funded emergency fund, and that's the real buffer, the huge umbrella between you and life. So if there's a job loss, there's a hospital emergency, the car breaks down, you're covered, with $10,000, $15,000 in the bank. And that feels like a lot of money to people. They're going, how am I going to do that? Well, I can show you how to do that. We have an event coming up in Dallas, Texas at Smart Conference, and you can join us October 22nd. Make the trip. It's going to be worth it. I'm going to show you how to get that margin in your money and your life.
Nearly 40% of households can't afford to pay cash for a $400 emergency, right? According to the Federal Reserve. Does that surprise you or no?
Hearing all of the stats about credit card debt and how it's soaring in America today, it sadly doesn't shock me. And here's what people are thinking. Well, I'll just turn to my credit card in case there's an emergency. And what happens is you have a deficit every single month and it compounds, and all of a sudden we get calls on the Ramsey Show and people are saying, I'm $50,000 in credit card debt. And I was just putting expenses on there. And I thought I was going to pay it off every month. And so it turns out credit cards are a rubber crutch. And now you're paying 24% interest because you use that as your emergency fund. So I want you to become your own bank and create your own emergency fund. That's the plan here.
So obviously being debt-free is the cornerstone of your philosophy, of Dave's philosophy. And if we're starting with someone who says, look, I've never had $5,000, $6,000, $10,000 in a savings account before in my whole life, what would you say to those people who are like, man, I'm looking up at this mountain right now?
Well, I felt the same way. I was $40,000 in debt. I never had enough money in the bank to cover life. And I got on this plan and I got on a budget. And that's what happens is you start telling your money where to go instead of constantly wondering where it went. So a budget is freedom because you know where every single dollar is going. We have a free app called Every Dollar that makes it super easy to put this together. And once you do that, you start to go, oh my gosh, I didn't realize I was spending so much on eating out. And man, I got to cut that subscription. I don't even use that thing. And you know what? I'm going to sell some stuff to bring in extra income. I'm going to start, taking on some side hustles. And once you do that, you get motivated, and it almost becomes addicting to get control of your money. And so that's what I want for all of the listeners out there.
One of the things that I was thinking about, if I have that plumber or electrician come out to my house and they give me a $1,500, $2,000 estimate for a repair, and I don't have my fund quite built up yet, what would you do in a situation like that?
Well, if you're following the Ramsey plan, the 7 baby steps, what would happen is you would pause the baby steps. So we're saying, all right, we're going to pay minimum payments on all of our debts. We're going to work with our lenders to get on payment plans for now. And all of the extra margin we were throwing at debt now is going to go towards that emergency. And so now you can go, all right, I can save up $500 this month, and next month that's $1,000. And so within 2 months, we can get this thing taken care of. And a lot of times you realize it really isn't an emergency. We can live for another 30 days with this. Now, if it's a hospital bill, you can get on a payment plan with the hospital. If it's a fridge, we can go on Craigslist and find a $100 fridge for now. And so you can find temporary stopgaps. They're not always these $5,000, $10,000 emergencies that you have in your mind. That becomes paranoia.
Yeah, then that's great. And just thinking kind of outside of the box and not just looking at the estimate in front of you, but thinking outside the box. Super smart. Just one last thing. When folks talk about, equity lines of credit, home equity loans or home construction loans, what is your general philosophy on things like that?
My philosophy is that debt is always a bad idea, and these are extra bad ideas. I want you to cash flow any repairs you need to make. Do not borrow against your home. that's a way to get foreclosed on. It puts you and your home in danger. So cash flow these repairs, take your time with it, get on a budget, get out of debt, and put those to the side. Those are never good options. It puts you going backwards into your financial journey instead of looking to the future.
Well, George Kamel with Ramsey Solutions, we thank you so much for your time today. We really appreciate it.
Thanks, Dave.